with where I'm going in life and what I want to accomplish, there's no way that I can do it to the degree I want to do it by myself. And it took me a long time as an entrepreneur to realize that, because I was always that person that was like, give me that, I'll do it. Give me that, I can do it.
What was the experience when you hired someone that really you just knew this person's going to make a difference in my business?
So we have a recruiting process in our business, and that process is being weed out applicants in mass, and then we move them on to a second round quick Zoom call, like we call it a vibe check, and then we do audio recording throughout that process on them selling us on why they think they're a great fit for the job. And then we do what's easy to do is when you're hiring in a frenzy, in those moments you are the most vulnerable to bad choices. I don't care, just get someone in the role. And it's always a bad hire. Identifying talent as a skill and becoming better and better at it, that moment felt like was being in the jungle and you see an orange and black striped tiger.
Welcome to the Millionaire Hairstylist, where our mission is the financial well-being of creative professionals. If you have a business and you're going to grow that business, it's going to involve hiring people. And who you hire is one of the most important questions that any business owner can answer. That's exactly what we cover in this conversation between myself and our founder, celebrity hairstylist Cash Lawless. We call it how to spot the tiger in the jungle, how to find, how to validate, how to attract and keep high quality, 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000, 1 in a million level talent to really help your business grow. Let's get right into it here on the Millionaire Hairstylist. So you and I are having a conversation about identifying talent and about identifying, and I think because we talk a lot about organizational systems in business and this fundamental paradigm of business, which is that in order to really succeed, you have to grow beyond yourself. And in order to grow beyond yourself, you do need great people. Now, you also need systems and tools with which those people can thrive and exist, but great people is obviously an extraordinarily important, if not the most important part of business. And I think, Cash, you and I were just talking about, for all the testing that you do and for all the interviews that you do and these different questions that you like to ask people, there's just an element of this hiring where you feel that you're, I guess, aspiring to, which is really about your gut and how your reaction to someone or a potential hire that is really, I don't know, what would you say, instinctual?
Absolutely. I didn't thought in the beginning it was all paperwork and strategy and headhunters and all kinds of things. It isn't. There are a lot of ways you can find talent, and I've stumbled across talent accidentally. That's just not the way that I want to build my businesses. So with where I'm going in life and what I want to accomplish, there's no way that I can do it to the degree I want to do it by myself. There's no way. I've said this in the past. I am not a strong and independent person. I am weak and incapable and want as much help from the greatest people I possibly can. And I'm going to work my tail off, of course, but I just know that I was not built to be excellent at 50 different things, and I'm not. And I think, it took me a long time as an entrepreneur to realize that, because I was always that person that was like, give me that, I'll do it. Give me that, I can do it. What can't you do? I can do it. You ever seen that video of P. Diddy smashing his phone down and hitting the table? Well, there's a video online that Coco and I just love. It's P. Diddy, and he's sitting on a phone like this. He's just got the phone up to his ears, and he says, all right, okay, cool, thank you. And he puts the phone down, and he hangs it up. And then all of a sudden he jumps up and smashes his hand on the table and says, yes, I got my MTV or something like that, right? He got something, VH1 or MTV or something. Yeah. And I can do anything. What can't you do? Give it to me. I'll do it. And it was like,
so you.
I very much try not to be that person anymore, because after you do that 5 or 6 times, you're doing everything, and then everything you do sucks. So I came to the realization that I've just got to be able to identify great talent. I've got to be able to cast clear vision. I have to know where I'm going, know what I want, know what I want to accomplish, and have a general direction for how we're going to get there, and then find great people to get on the train, to get on the bus.
But that's the thing about finding great people is that, again, let's be clear. I'm not trying to be dismissive of things like testing, because you can make a very strong argument that one of the smartest things you can do is to test the people that you hire. You use something you like to call or you don't like to call. It's called the Kolbie A Index. They have different tests that Kolbie offers, relatively inexpensive, rates people on various scales of how they learn and how they operate. And those are data points that are extraordinarily important. But there's also this element. Can you describe for me the last time, Cash, that you hired someone that you just went, yeah, this person, or maybe the closest you feel you've gotten to that moment? What did that feel like? What was the experience when you hired someone that really you just knew this person's going to make a difference in my business?
So we have a recruiting process in our business, and that process is being adapted as we get more data. So we're doing postmortem on every hire and every fire and saying, what made this one successful? Was it really us, or was this sort of just a fluke? Because if you're sort of hiring 50% crap, 50% great, or 50% good, how do you really know anything you're doing is actually working? Now, if you have 50% good or 50% great people, then you're probably doing something great, because there's very, very few great people that are actually in the line of work they're supposed to be doing. They're dominating in that work. And then you've got to sort of unite with them at the right time, put them in the right seat, have the right seat open, be able to afford them at the right time. So there's just a lot that has to line up for great people. We've developed a system over the last decade of hiring that includes multiple steps of getting to know that person. So you kind of like weed out applicants in mass in the beginning. And then we move them on to a second round, quick Zoom call, like we call it a vibe check, and you just get on with the recruiting manager, whoever's doing it. It could be the CLO, it could be his assistant. And then he or she is going to tee up a bunch of people for the next round. The next round would include an aptitude test. And that aptitude test shows us whether they have the chops to even, succeed moderately in that role. So it's something that is directly correlated to that role. If, for example, if I'm hiring for a finance role or a CIO role, it might be to analyze an investment, something like that, right? And then we do a we do a audio recording throughout that process on them selling us on why they think they're a great fit for the job, what the job is about, what they think it is, all that kind of stuff. It's a 60-second audio clip. We used to do video, but it really reduced the amount of applicants we got. And then we do testing on top of that. So on top of the aptitude test, we do another test, which is like the Kolbie A Index or the DISC test or several other tests that might be more pertinent to the role. Mm-hmm. And all these things sort of need to line up, right? But what I discovered lately is that the hires that I made that were the best, I knew immediately. And I didn't used to feel that way.
That's interesting. So this is an acquired taste, if you will. It's a developed skill.
Yeah, maybe. I want to work. I'm trying to work that out because I think it's something you can hone, and I think it's something I can get better at and better at. And I think I have gotten better at it. But there's a certain when all of it lines up where it's, hey, I'm only involved in final round interview for high positions in our businesses. So I don't know every hire. I haven't met everybody, and I think there's certain positions I really want to be involved in hiring because I think they're integral roles. They'll be leaders in the business, usually executive, usually management, things like that. And the position, like the last hire I made was for a new personal assistant. And it was, we did the phone call, we did the vibe check, we did the audio recording, we did the aptitude test, we checked and verified their performance in a particular role. So we want to verify whether they can do it or not. All that was great. But the second I sat down with her, I was like, that's the one. And I just knew there was 3 applicants that were coming in that day. For that day, we were choosing one out of these 3. And it was like, boom. The first one showed up 4 minutes late. So that was an immediate no. We sent her home, didn't even interview her. And she showed up early. She was actually the last one. Sat down. It was like immediately when she left the room, it was 3 of us in that final round interview. We were like, duh, she's going to be incredible. And she's been one of the best hires. So and we just knew. It was like 5 seconds into that. It was just like, oh, there was something there. There was something there. Now, maybe not 5 seconds, but sometime in those first few minutes of that final round interview, it was very, very clear. And so I wanted to, you and I were talking yesterday about identifying talent as a skill and becoming better and better at it. And what I felt like that moment felt was being in the jungle and everything's green and you see an orange and black and, striped tiger. Our bodies are programmed to respond a certain physical way and take certain physical action immediately. When we see that type of risk, we know what that is. We know that it's dangerous. We know it could hurt us. And so we immediately do something about that. Whether we panic or run or free, our bodies are just immediately identify danger. So and that's when I said, I want to be so good at finding talent that it feels like that it feels like spotting a tiger in the jungle. Because I know that our bodies can be trained and in tune to respond in a way that just becomes so intuitive that you can make a great decision really quickly. You can see it in sports. These people are so well trained. The baseball, they know when to swing for the ball. Or
right. Right.
And it's not every time. Nobody does this 100% of the time, but there's an instinct that you can develop about people. And I think that's something that I want to listen to more.
If you are a creative professional who wants to improve your relationship with money, go to millionairehairstylistpodcast.com, create a free student account, and you can access an entire library of educational resources geared at improving your financial well-being, including a lesson on the 3 phases of wealth building for creative professionals. Go to millionairehairstylistpodcast.com and sign up today. But you've also hired people in the past. I mean, you and I have been in business together a long time. Like I've seen you hire people that you were raving to me about, and then 6 months later you were firing them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So what do you feel when you look back? I think about your manufacturing company and people you've been very excited about, and then maybe they didn't pan out. What did you not see? If you had to put your finger on it, was there something specific? Was it a particular kind of a blind spot, or was it just stuff you couldn't know until you got into the trenches with that person?
Yeah, I think there's something that happened and maybe still happens, and I think we all should be aware of, which is decision bias. And that is, I've made this decision, so I'm sticking with it. And so my script to myself is that, no, this is a great choice, and it's going to work out. And you have all these sort of like scripts, but in your gut, and that's the gut feeling I'm talking about with the tiger, where it's like, no, this is crystal clear, and I'm taking immediate action. And I think we fired 5 people or so in the last month or so. And it was just really, really evident that needed to be done. And we were so swift and decisive with identifying why those people needed to leave the team, why it would be better for them, why it would be better for us, what mistakes we made. We've done a postmortem with my COO on every single person we let go. And ultimately it came down to our decision making. And we had made compromises along the way and we noticed that every single person we hired that we wound up being disappointed with, the decision was like, I think they could work out. I think this will be good. Everybody that's still here was like, oh my gosh, we have to pay them more. We can't lose them.
So you're saying that when you look back in retrospect on the people that have not worked out, it's almost always like you kind of had a hunch, or there was a part of there was a part of that process where you sort of said, okay, well, let's see if this is shy, or this could work, or this could be good.
Yeah.
But you look back on that data set and go, I wasn't completely sold.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there was some blinding biases in place that, when you own your own home and you live in it and you decorate it yourself, you think it's worth more than it is. And that's ownership bias. And you can get that with your employees too. So you can have decision bias where you decide you're just going to stick with things, even though it's dumb to stick with it because you decided and you're a person that sticks with something. And then you have ownership bias where it's, well, this is my employee and it's my responsibility to make them amazing and get them to perform. And I'm the leader. So if they're failing, I'm failing. None of that is actually true. Each scenario is completely different and has to be isolated, and the decision needs to be made in that situation with that individual person each time. There's just none of these blanket biases that should be applied to, I should keep them, I shouldn't keep them. And I think one of the simple frameworks that we've developed now that's been really helpful as a guiding framework is the AAA employee. So I don't even call people employees, they're team members. So when we're looking for AAA team members, what we're looking for is that do they have the attitude? So that's critical. Number one, that's why we do a vibe check. We do give us an audio recording. We want to hear from you. We want to hear how you talk about yourself and how you see yourself doing this. We want to just have a conversation with you. Is this a good cultural fit? Quick conversation, 5 minutes. And then that's attitude. Do you have the attitude? Do you have the drive? And you learn more about that through the interview process. But then the second one is achievement. We want to validate that you've achieved really, really well in this role. So in the seat, not just in general. We don't just want like generally successful people. So right now I'm recruiting for a marketing director, and that marketing director is going to have to prove that they have done incredible things in marketing. And if they're really incredible in marketing, they'll have the data. They'll have that ready. They'll know exactly what they contributed. They'll know exactly how they ran campaigns. And, I've spent 8 figures in marketing dollars. And so and doing it all myself on tons of different marketing.
You'd be hard to fool.
Yeah, it'd be very hard to fool in that.
If someone doesn't have the receipts.
In that one, but there's roles I've hired for, a CFO. I'm not a CPA, right? I don't have an accounting license. Like I don't have any of the credentials, right? I know enough to be dangerous about that stuff. But when my bank says, "Hey, I need consolidated financials," I'm not digging in and consolidating financials. So there's definitely there's 2 positions you can come from. And you'll have to discover what validation methods you'll use when hiring someone that ideally would be better than you and much better than you in a certain role. It's easy to hire for the roles you've been amazing in, but not so much for the ones that you haven't. So you'll have to come up with how you're going to validate the success of that person. And there's nothing better to me than like physical evidence of past performance. That's huge. So there's attitude, aptitude, and then, attitude.
I think you inverted the order. You said attitude, achievement, and I think the last one is aptitude, yes?
Yeah. So it's attitude, achievement, you have to achieve, and then the aptitude. You have to have the natural ability to enjoy and succeed in this role, right? You might be like a great accountant, but then you hate your life and you hate what you do. That's not the person I want to, and that's why we integrate testing.
Or you might be a great accountant, but this is a sales role. Or you might be a great salesperson and this is an accounting role. Some people there's just a mismatch of what their skill set, their aptitudes are, and the position.
Yeah. And so all of that to say, there is something to developing the skill of spotting talent. And I can see very clearly how bad I was at it. How it was like purely, I'm just excited about you. I like you. And so I'm going to hire you and we'll figure out what to do with you. That was sort of me in the very beginning, the first hires I ever made. All of those people are gone. And over time, what I realized over hiring and firing and running postmortems on every single scenario over dozens and dozens of people is that it goes beyond just testing and processes. This is something you can get better at. This is something you can, if you analyze the way that you've hired and why you chose those people and look at your biases and start thinking like, I've hired 10 great people, right? I've done that 10 times well. By the 11th and 12th and 13th, you'll start getting this tiger in the jungle reaction where you go, dang, that's talent. I know it. I've seen that before. I've seen that tiger. I know what's going to happen.
And I think that's why the testing is so important, because if you have a really good sense of time, you might say, what time is it? You're like, it's about 4:00, but you still have a clock to just make sure you're correct. And you might have a really good sense of how long things take. You might be really good at knowing how fast you're going, but you still have a speedometer. You might have a great eye for talent. You still test people. You still want to, not only validate your gut feeling about them. It's good to have that data, especially if you're working with a team, especially if you're hiring in volume, especially if you're hiring outside of maybe, like you said, your skill set. But then also it's if you trust the data enough to help it make you enough to help you make the decisions, then it's also training you. The data is training your instincts and it's training your gauge, because if the data is coming back and telling you, that person you had a bad feeling about, they also tested poorly in the ways you thought they would, it's reaffirming. And I also know business owners who have said, I had a great feeling about someone. The data told me I shouldn't hire them. I did anyway, and I regret it. So, sometimes it's just about you have to let the external variables have an impact on that meter and that gauge. And I think, Cash, that what I like hearing about this from you is A, this is something that takes time that you get better at over time. B, this is something that's good and worth getting good at. You could make an argument, again, if people are the most important part of success in any business, and this is whether or not you're talking about hiring one person in your business or 20. If people are the most important part, then your ability to pick and manage and maintain great people becomes almost one of the most important things you can do. And so, it's a fair statement to say as a side point, if you look at successful business owners in any domain, if they are bad at picking great people, if they are not good at picking good people, they would not be good business owners. Like, they wouldn't be successful business owners. The fact that they have a business that succeeds at all is representative of that fundamental truism and reality of business, which is you have to be able to pick great people. At some level, that has to be a skill set you possess.
Absolutely. And there's 2 skills beyond that you have to have too.
Which is?
You have to be able to attract great people, which means you have to become the person that great people want to work with. And 2, you have to be able to get good people, meaning you need to have the resources to acquire them, meaning you need to be able to pay for them. And 3, you have to keep good people. So you're going to have to get good at all 3 of those if you want to build something incredible. If you want to achieve well and fast, not incrementally, but exponentially. That's the only way I've seen it done. It's the only way I know how to do it, is you got to be good at all those 3 things. But it all starts with being able to even just identify good talent. And like you said, you do get better at this over time, because one thing you can do once you have a few good hires, if you have 2 or 3 good hires, what we've done is we've gone and retested everyone in our business who is like high performing in that role, and we benchmark their test results, and we benchmark them and say, you know what, for the next hire, the next person needs to match those. That's the exact person we want, right? And what's easy to do is when you're hiring in a frenzy, you're a drowning entrepreneur, you've got so much going on, and you're trying to hire an assistant or a new employee to take over a role. Maybe you lost somebody and you're like, all that work fell on your plate. When you're a small business, everything falls back on your plate, right? So in those moments, you are the most vulnerable to bad choices. You're the most vulnerable to making a speedy choice. And I know that because I've done that so many times where I'm like, I don't care, just get someone in the role. And it's always a bad hire. It's always a bad hire, right? Because you compromise on the testing. Well, they didn't score a 4 like it was supposed to be. They scored a 2.
And you're talking yourself into the hire.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe the testing is wrong. Maybe the testing isn't that accurate. We've had all these conversations, and it just, you got to define that role, benchmark it, and it becomes so much easier once you have a few high performers in your business, because you can benchmark them against all new people that come on.
I love that. Go forth and hire great people. Build your business.
Please do that.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and then okay.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy.
If you're a hairstylist, if you're a creative professional, and you are interested in your financial well-being, remember to like and subscribe so that more episodes just like this one show up in your YouTube feed.